This is a Chinese movie recap called Big Brother. It's an action drama comedy film. Henry has returned to Hong Kong after serving in the US military for years, looking to start a career as a teacher. He goes to his former school, Tak Chai Secondary. The principal noticed that he doesn't have experience in teaching, but after being shown a recommendation letter from a higher official, he is given the job. Before Henry leaves, the principal informs him that the class he is assigned to teach is the worst one of their school. The morning of his first day at school, Henry walks into the class to see that it's an absolute chaos. Some students are sleeping, others are singing, some are playing video games, while a good number of them are cooking ramen on a portable stove. Even after the teacher walks in, they completely ignore him and contain what they are doing. Henry tries to get their attention, but they pretend to not hear him. He gives up trying to divert their attention and goes around the classroom commenting on the things they are already doing. The students who are cooking are asked to eat less ramen because it's contained too much sodium. Henry then approaches a guy named Zufa playing ukulele and helps him with it. Similarly, he warns a gamer kid against the radiation he might receive from staring at the screen all day. When the students finally start listening to him, he introduces himself and writes his name and phone number on the board. The students laugh because his handwriting is ugly. Then, someone from the students calls him and asks him to leave the class, but Henry laughs it off. The kids ignore him yet again and continue with the activities they were doing before his arrival. Having enough of it, Henry uses a rubber band and chalk to trigger the fire sprinkle in the room. The students quickly spread out to keeping themselves from getting wet. He finally gets their full attention and officially welcomes them to his class. After class, a group of 5 lowest ranking students gathers in the sports supply room to smoke. The leader of the group, Jack, has a crush on an 8th grade student from another class. The others find him staring at her picture and make fun of him. The group has rivalry with the rich and spoils kids from the school's basketball team. They enter the supply room and mock Jack as usual because he's poor. Later, the basketball team is practicing while Jack and the group watch them from nearby. Jack drops a bottle to the court, which causes the team leader to fall. The group laughs but is given detention by the school English teacher, Miss Long. To avoid detention, they play a prank on her and run away when she's busy cleaning her desk. Elsewhere, the school principal is distressed because the education board is planning to dedicate 20% of their annual findings. The people from the board come to take tour of the school to inspect where the funds are being used. At the same time, Henry enters the classroom where the students have set up a bucket of water to prank him, but his reflexes work faster than the falling bucket and he is able to push it away. The students who have been waiting to make fun of him are left shocked. Henry asks for Jack's bucket of cigarettes, knowing that he smokes. Jack simply hands him the bucket, curious as to what he is about to do. Then Henry asks Zufa to name the 3 ingredients that are in cigarette. When he answers the question correctly, he is left to skip class for the day. Everyone starts to bang on their desks, demanding that they should get to skip class as well. When they stop, he hands them all a cigarette and asks them to analyze it. Henry knows that if he simply mentions the effect it has on their health, they won't take it seriously. So instead, he asks them about the outcome of smoking cigarettes and explains how to perform in their lungs. For the first time, they pay attention to the teacher and are actually interested in learning. After the bell rings, he asks them to return the cigarette, and the students reluctantly agree. That day in the cafeteria, the captain of the basketball team makes one of Jack's friends, Bruce, trip on his leg. This gives rise to an argument between the group, which soon turned into a fight. They threw food and tables at each other, destroying the place. Later, Henry is informed that 5 students from his class have been temporarily suspended for starting the fight. Henry finds Jack fighting his opponent in the hallway and stops them on being asked to calm down. Jack accuses the school of being unfair because the rich kid got no punishment. The day after school, Henry goes through the files of all 5 students to find out more about them. The first guy is named Zufa, the son of a Pakistani immigrant who is always discriminated against because of his race. He is often accused of stealing by the policeman in his neighborhood. Zufa's only wish in his life is to become a musician. The second student is a girl named Dinan. She was a disappointment to her father ever since her birth because he always wanted a son. Her entire life, Dinan has been trying to gain her father's respect. She even cut her hair to a shorter length and played with cars to pretend to be a boy. Yet, her father father doesn't care about her, while he treats her younger brother like a prince. Then there are brothers named Bruce and Chris. Their mother ran away with a man when they were only kids, which turned their father into alcoholic. The brothers only had each other to rely on while growing up. Bruce became obsessed with video game to escape reality, while Chris worked hard in a grocery store to make money for the family. Lastly, Henry can find no information about Jack's family background. In the following scenes, we see Jack's working at a restaurant as a waiter. An MMA better, Jin Young, arrives at the restaurant with his business partner. When Jin Young isn't looking, Jack steals his fancy lighter, but is caught. Jin Young's men beat him up as he checks Jack's ID. After finding out that he is a student, he gives him some money and offers him a job as their food delivery. Somewhere else, Henry visits Zufa's home and finds him running away from his father and his suicide after stealing a ticket. He helps him at first, but after finding out why he is being cased, he takes the father's side. Then he and Zufa come to hang out at the bridge. To motivate Zufa into doing whatever he wants, Henry sings with a band performing in the street. Second later, Zufa joins him and sings in front of people for the first time after being bullied at school years ago. Meanwhile, Bruce and Chris' father comes home late, like always, and orders them to bring him a beer from the store. When the brother refused, he yelled at them to get out of his house. The next day, Henry met with their father and to convince him to go to rehab for his son's well-being. In the meantime, Dinan's father brings her bag of makeup product and asks her to act like a girl. For once, Dinan is furious at him for always making her feel like she is not good enough. She applies the makeup on her younger brother and sneaks out of the house with the car key. She's about to drive away in her father's car, but is stopped by Henry at the right moment. He tells her that driving without a license is illegal and suggests an alternative following that they go to go-kart race track. Henry also invites her father and make them race. The father and daughter show no mercy to each other during the race and eventually ends up outside the track. Suddenly, Dina's go-kart is hit by a vehicle, but she managed to dodge it. Unaware of this, her father cries mourning his daughter's death. Dinan realizes that he does in fact love her and hugs him. The next day at school, Bruce and Chris, along with a group, are sent to a rehabilitation center to interview a recovering alcoholic. They are surprised to see that the person they have to interview is their father. The students ask him how he started to drink. The man answers that he loved his wife dearly, but she left him at the lowest point of his life. Hence, he started to drink and forgets that he had 2 kids to take care of. The man doesn't reveal that Bruce and Chris are his sons, but apologizes to them. By the end of it, the brothers are left crying. Somewhere else, Jack has started to work for the MMA putter Jin Young. He offered Jack a lot of money to drug a fighter drink in the next game. Jack is reluctant, but is forced into accepting the offer. On the day of the fight, Jin Young sponsored a fighter, but puts money in his loss. Jack puts drug on the fighter drink, but it's caught while doing it. So, before he can blame Jin Young, he is beaten up and locked inside the locker. A while later, Henry arrives there and asks the fighter if they have seized his student. The man asks him to return home, but Jack from inside the locker yells for help. After finding out he is being trapped, Henry attacks them and overpower them easily. When the fighters step it gets a bit intense, but Henry dodges their attack efficiently. By the end of it, he knocks out their best fighter who was supposed to compete in a few minutes. In the following scene, they are all at the hospital, where Henry gets treated for his wounds. Jack tries to reveal the truth about Jin Young, but is made to shut up. The news make it to the television, and Henry starts to be known as the man who beat up a professional fighter to save his student. His popularity in school grows, and the students start to respect him. They even get up to welcome him to the class. In contrast to how they were earlier, a flashback shows us that Henry used to be a prankster when he was in school. He even threw water balloons at a student who was playing piano for the parents in an event. Later, he fought the same student and broke his hand. He was suspended for the fight, after which he had to fly to the States. Starting that day, the students pay attention when Henry teaches in class and study hard for the incoming college entrance test. Everyone is doing great except Bruce, who has grown addicted to pills. It's turned out that while Chris turned to video games to avoid his family problems, Bruce started doing drugs because he is unfocused. He does very badly in the mock entrance test. Henry promises to help him, but Bruce grows more depressed with time. Eventually, he jumps off the balcony of their house. He is rushed to the hospital and goes into a coma. The media twists the news and blame it on the school and Henry for what Bruce did. The officials from the addiction board interview Henry and decide to revoke his teaching license. When he packs his things and leaves the school, the students chase him behind, asking him to stay. They are heartbroken by his absence, but they knew that they should egg their oncoming test to make him proud. From that day, they study twice as hard to prove to the board that Henry is a good teacher. On the day of the test, Jack, along with all his classmates, get a test from Henry, asking them to meet in the school an hour before the exams. When the students gather, they find out that it was Jin Young's trick to keep them confident in the school so they won't make it to the examination hall in time. He is doing this to teach Henry a lesson. A while later, Henry arrives at school and finds out about Jin Young's plan. He lets the students free and fight all of Jin Young's people to stop them from harming the children. They escape and quickly make their way to the examination hall while Harry fights Jin Young. While they are fighting one-on-one, Jin Young reveals that he was the guy who Henry had thrown water balloons at when he was little. It turns out that since Harry broke his arm, he wasn't able to compete in a big music competition ever since the accident. He hasn't touched a piano and blames Henry for ruining his dream. Henry tries to reason with him, but it attacks yet again. They struggle to get a hold of a knife. At last, Henry gets a chance to kill him, but doesn't do it. He asks for forgiveness for what he did when he was a little and walks away. The student reaches the examination hall at the right time and completes the test. Cut to a few weeks later, the old passes with flying colors. Jin Young starts to play the piano again, but has a lot to practice before he gets as good as he used to be. Bruce recovers quickly and promises to attend the next year entrance test. The principal is also delighted because the board decided to give them a 20% points found because their student did very well in the entrance test. Henry returns to teaching and does the fire sprinkle trick in another batch of students.